Hi there, I'm Si and welcome to my channel Nugget of Wisdom, and I'm in my motorhome called Joy on a windy and wet afternoon. So I created 7 videos which I called Nugget of Wisdom, and each video I kind of covered things that I thought were fundamental to kind of my understanding of relative truth. Why did I do that? Because on my channel I want to be able to express opinions, assessments, analysis, perspectives on books that I've read. I've read a lot of books, over 100 books that relate to philosophy, religion, spirituality, science, all sorts. In this sort of quest that I was on, like a seeker's quest, seeking to find out what is life all about and so on. And when I read those books, and I also watched countless videos and read countless articles and spent time with spiritual leaders and lived with people who were devoutly spiritual, who were monks, who were nuns, spent a lot of time getting involved with people who had different perspectives on life, who lived a different kind of lifestyle away from the consumerist world and so on. And then sort of at the end of this process, I realized that I was actually on a journey that only led back to me. And as Rupert Spira calls it, the pathless path. I was intellectually trying to use books and videos and everything else and knowledge to seek happiness. But actually, the happiness was already there in me and right around me. And so I've got to this point where I'm really keen to share what I learned, to share my take on some of the best, most incredible people that I've met, their books that I've read, the videos I've watched. And so I've kind of created the foundation of my channel. You can look at those videos and you can get an idea of what my appreciation of truth is, of morals, of free will, how I go about figuring out what I think might have certain levels of relative truth or not, and my opinions about things. And so obviously what I want to do is, in my future videos, is start to focus on some of the amazing people that I've come across and just give you a taste of them, and then put some links on my videos so you can actually go in and have a much more in-depth look at their teachings, at their wisdom, at their commentary, at their ideas, at their perspectives. The great thing about YouTube and the internet is that there are lots of audiobooks on there. So you can listen to the audiobooks of these people. You can listen to short excerpts. You can listen to little reviews of them, debates about them. So the ability for us to get our hands on the information, the knowledge and the wisdom of these people is incredible. I also want to say that my wisdom, my perception of wisdom, my truth is just my truth. So you should really take it all with a pinch of salt. If you find yourself getting angry at what I'm saying, or you find yourself really that it's resonating with you, it doesn't mean it's necessarily true. Or false. In many ways, you've got to build up a level of trust and respect in me through watching my videos, through doing your own investigations, through listening to some of the people that I will put forward, through reading some of the books, and then, as independently as you can, being able to look at me and go, this guy, what he's saying is useful. And what is useful? It's helping me. It helps others. It's positive. It adds something to our lives. It awakens us more. It allows us to flower more. If you disagree with things I'm saying, that's also really good, because no one has, and I haven't met them anyway, or heard of them, no one has this sort of hold on fundamental truth. Everyone has a perspective, and we're all learning, we're all changing, we're all growing. And part of the growing experience is the mistakes we make, the errors we make. So what I say to you now may actually be very different for me in 6 months or a year's time. In fact, if I look back my past, I'm a very different person to what I was 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Some of the things that I have got a lot of respect for today, and some of the teachings that I find very useful to me, I would not have even considered a few years ago. So you know, what I say is just what I say, and it could be a load of rubbish. But it's my truth. I've done everything I can to make sure that I'm able to absorb perspectives from completely different sources. You'll notice scientific, spiritual, historical, geological, psychology, all these things. I've been open-minded. I've been as open-minded as I possibly can be. I've tried to make sure that the ego isn't just taking stuff that reflects my own issues and problems and is making me feel good in the moment because it says something that resonates with some sort of trauma I've got. I've done a lot of work on myself so that I can really be open to wisdom. And one of the books that really inspires me is this book. It's called The Mirror of Simple Souls. And it was written by a lady called Marguerite Porete in 1308. And basically, this book, it's a quite difficult book to read. It was supposed to be written in Latin, but it was written in French. And that was the first mistake she made, because the church was not happy that she'd written the book in French. One of the reasons books were written in Latin was because the church felt that its scholars and its teachers were the ones who understood the teachings, and therefore there was a language barrier. So the ordinary guys and the peasants in the street couldn't read these books because they'd have to learn Latin. So in a way, it was a way of curtailing people from being able to read books of wisdom. And I don't think it was done with malice. It was just that the people at that time, the priests and the bishops and the cardinals, thought if the public were to be able to read books, it would cause all sorts of trouble because they wouldn't understand. And so Marguerite Porete wrote this book in French. Obviously, she wanted as many people. She was French Flemish. She wanted these people, as many people of all different backgrounds, to be able to read the book. She wanted this wisdom, this knowledge, this perspective of hers to go far and wide. But obviously the church was not happy with that. And obviously in her book, she has like three characters in the book. One's called the soul, and I believe it's kind of referring to her. The other one is love, and the other one is reason. And she basically there's conversations between these three characters. And I like the way in the book she questions everything that love says. Reason is there saying, hold on a second. And I like that because that's how I kind of navigate my world. I still like to use intellectual reason to look at something and go, hold on, is this true or is it not true? Why is it true? Why is it relatively true? So she was a fantastic woman, but sadly, she was a kind of nun, but basically she was in an open order of nuns who could come and go, and if they didn't have any, so there wasn't any kind of particular dogma or doctrine. They weren't like officially, brought into a kind of a cultish organization. It was a very sort of laid back organization for women, and they were able to leave if they wanted to and get married. So there wasn't the same kind of constraints on her that you would see in a proper order of nuns, and the church didn't like that either. The Catholic Church was not happy with that because they didn't feel well, I guess they felt that women it was too liberal and too free, it wasn't constrained. So before she published this book, she did everything to make sure she followed all the rules, and she made sure that cardinals, bishops, local bishops, I think, not cardinals, sort of signed it off to say, yes, it's okay. But basically, once some senior people in the church got their hands in it, they were pretty unhappy. Because the book really kind of is saying that once you kind of, well, it's my perspective, and it could be wrong, but once the soul dissolves, once, not that she calls it the soul, but basically, once your persona, your ego dissolves, you become God. And for her, I do not believe God was a guy. God was a person. I think God for her was pure, unconditional love. And she tries to sort of express that when this happens, you don't really need to abide by these rules, these morals, the church and so on. I think the church should probably interpret that as, oh, if people read this book, they're going to think we can just do what we like. But she was trying to say, no, you don't do what you like. Because you basically become love, you become peace. And you live a wonderful, joyous, peaceful, respectful, law-abiding life. But of course the church either misinterpreted that or just didn't want this kind of book to be out there. So she was imprisoned for 2 years with one of her colleagues. She was put in a men's prison, which was even crueler in that era. And she was put on trial for heresy. And of course, she refused to give in and change. You know, if you sort of admitted guilt and you repented, you'd have your sentence, which was to be executed, reduced to probably a period of time in prison. And the guy that was in prison with her, that's what he did, and he ended up with a long prison sentence. She ended up basically being, in her absence, convicted of heresy with a sentence to be burnt at the stake, and she was burnt at the stake. It's the saddest thing, because when you see and read this book, very difficult to read, as I say, but when you read it, but this book is beauty, this book is about love, there's nothing in this book that could warrant any kind of sanction against the person who's written. It's pure lack of understanding from the church at the time that led to her losing her life. But what I find more interesting is that the book just sat there, and it was only published, I think I have the time here, in 1927 this book was published. So it spent hundreds of years sort of hidden away, and then it got discovered, and then it was discovered that she was basically the author, because there was lots of plagiarism. Parts of the book had been used even by the church. And the book finally got published in 1927, and I got a copy here that I bought on eBay. So, despite all of that time, all of that pain and cruelty, her book is actually there, and it's in print. And what's even more wonderful is somebody's just put up an audiobook. I think it's one of those kind of AI style voices, but it's actually the whole book is on YouTube. And she obviously never knew in her life that there was going to be such an amazing access for people to, read books and listen to audiobooks and all that sort of stuff. But isn't it just so wonderful that she's still alive in this? She lives through this amazing book. And what the book says, and how the book basically teaches, it has lessons for us now, today. There's lessons for our world leaders in this book. It has lessons for the church. The church should be searching and scouring all of its archives and its records for people like this. And just saying, yes, we were an evolving organization. Things were changing. And now we want to promote these beautiful people who do these amazing things. Not just leave it to some obscure printing or somebody to find it after hundreds of years, and then perhaps it just gets bought off eBay on a limited number of production run of books. That they embrace these amazing people who had amazing gifts to offer us, and they just happen to express these things at the wrong time in the wrong place. But their legacy is still here through these words, these magical words. And so for me, that's the inspiration of my channel. My inspiration is that to express some of the wisdom that this book possesses, to use it to try to get people to link to find out about some of these incredible wisdom teachers. And to leave that kind of legacy, continue that kind of legacy. That's unfolding, growing and flowering that human beings were meant to do, where we're constantly learning, where we're constantly opening up our hearts to new ideas, to different kinds of thinking, to new perspectives. And now in this world of today, we can do it without fear. We can do it without this fear that we're going to end up being burnt at the stake or having our heads chopped off and so on. So that's really what my channel is all about. That's kind of my inspiration, this book. And even if you don't read the book, because it's quite a difficult book, there's a brilliant little documentary which you can listen to, which is only about a half an hour long, about her. There are many more people like her, and from today, from the modern world, and from the ancient past. Amazing spiritual teachers, amazing mystics and mystical Christians, and the Sufis and the Buddhists and the Hindus and the Taoists, modern philosophers and scientists and biologists and historians and geologists. There are incredible people in the world. Some of them are beginning to have a voice. Some are becoming more and more popular because of YouTube. But others are still very unknown. So what I'd like to do as part of the sort of progression of this channel is to just point you to some of these amazing people. Maybe give you a small idea of what I learned about, what I learned from them. But also I'd like to use this wisdom and the wisdom of these books and these teachers to look at modern day issues. The things that in the modern world we are all so angsty and frustrated and confused about. And so just using that wisdom to share with you a different perspective on what may be happening and how we might be able to help resolve some of these problems. How some of the wisdom of these people might be able to give us a key to unlocking some nuggets of wisdom to resolve and help to resolve some of the nonsensical problems that we've got in the world. So thank you for listening, and look forward to seeing you again on my next videos.